So in this segment, we're going to be discussing Downing Street warns DUP that Windsor Framework is the best deal available to Northern Ireland. So this comes off the back of the DUP warning the Tories that they're not going to vote for the deal in Parliament. So that's going to happen, I think, on Wednesday, with Boris Johnson leading a potential rebellion on it. So Downing Street has said the Windsor Framework agreement with the EU is the, quote, best deal available, end quote, after Donaldson claimed it does not deal with the, quote, fundamental problems, end quote, created by the Northern Ireland Protocol. Donaldson said the deal is progress, but he still wants to change the Windsor Framework, which is still in draft form, but it will be difficult to change the fundamentals on it. The Windsor Framework was, of course, based on the Northern Ireland Protocol, so it's not a massive change. Speaking from Washington, D.C., the DUP leader said he needed to see the legislation linked to the agreement before making a decision on backing it, and he did not feel pressure to meet, quote, any arbitrary deadline, end quote. So the DUP are happy to drag this one out. The Lagan Valley MP said, quote, while undoubtedly representing significant progress across a number of areas, end quote, the deal did not resolve, quote, fundamental problems at the heart of our current difficulties. It is my assessment that there remains areas of concern which require further clarification, reworking and changing, as well as seeing further legal text. There are a number of elements requiring UK government domestic legislation, the drafts of which have not been published, end quote. So we're still waiting on certain aspects of it to be finished, but then again, it's being voted on Wednesday, so it's a bit weird that they've said it's in draft form, but they're pushing the thing through. Again, I don't think the DUP will get what they want out of this. The question is, will they take the changes as a win, the Windsor Framework as a win, and just move on? I guess the bigger question is, can they take this as a win? Will their voters, their supporters, allow them to move on, or will they vote for the more radical party like the TUV? You have a lot of radical unionists involved in the DUP, as they are the biggest unionist party, and you can imagine if their votes and support shift over to TUV, it could be a disaster for the DUP, because they were the largest party in Stormont until Sinn Féin won. So if they start hemorrhaging support to the TUV, for example, it could mean they will no longer be the First Minister, and they'll be relegated to Deputy First Minister for a while. Earlier this month, Donaldson announced the creation of an 8-person panel to examine the detail of the Windsor Framework, which was unveiled by the Prime Minister in February following months of intense negotiations. Listing some key concerns, the DUP said the framework did not, quote, adequately remedy the harm done by the protocol to Article 6 of the Acts of Union and our ability with the rest of the UK, end quote, and nor did it, quote, protect Northern Ireland's place in the UK internal market, end quote. So the question is, what harm has the protocol done to Northern Ireland? So according to the ONS, in quarter 2, April to June 2022, Wales and Northern Ireland showed negative quarter-on-quarter growth in GDP of 0.4 and 0.3% respectively, while growth in England and Scotland was a flat 0. So they're not, comparatively, they're not doing that much worse or better than other parts of the United Kingdom. The ONS did not have a figure for Scotland. The ONS figure for Scotland is 0, so not doing great. But we can see Northern Ireland is doing slightly worse than England, but better than Wales. So when talks about harm, when he talks about harm, I cannot see really what he's talking about. Northern Ireland has cheaper food, and by having access to the single market for goods, they are not seeing the shortages that we in Great Britain are seeing. If the harms is that they can't get sausages specifically from Great Britain, which they often complain about, when there are lots of sausages made in Northern Ireland and Ireland, then that's a bit pathetic. And it takes away from the businesses that have been unable to move their supply chains out of GB. Those are the ones who would benefit a lot from things like the Green Lane, for example. So, the DUP here, pretty pathetic, but, that comes with the territory. The DUP also called for greater clarity on the Stormont break, for vetoing EU laws and how the proposed green lanes for trade would work regarding the movement of goods within the UK internal market. And this is something I would want to see, something with an actual example given of how the Stormont break would exactly work. I think that would be good. With the green lane, I think it will work on a system of trusted traders. So the bigger companies would benefit at first. And if the EU kind of sees that nothing bad is happening, then they'll extend it to other traders, or the ones predominantly that just exist within Great Britain and don't really have businesses set up in Northern Ireland, for example. Donaldson said the discussions with the government about his party's concerns were underway. He insisted the DUP, quote, the DUP wanted, quote, to see a return to the delicate political balance within Northern Ireland, where the views of unionists are valued and respected, end quote. So you really want to see a return of the delicate political balance, or did you want to see a hard border with Ireland? Like, who are you trying to kid here? The unionist views have been respected. That's why we're in this mess. Perhaps if you did not overvalue our views and respected what you had pre-Brexit, you would not be in this mess. It was the greed of the unionist Brexiteers who helped us get into this situation. They wanted a hard border with Ireland. They wanted an end to the Good Friday Agreement. And had they respected the delicate political balance that the kind of, the All Ireland kind of has, we wouldn't be here where we are. Number 10 said, no other deals on the table. A spokesperson added, quote, we have been engaging with the DUP and other groups on the Windsor Framework. We stand ready to discuss any further questions. We have said we will let MPs have a say and are committed to a vote on it in Parliament, but ultimately the Prime Minister thinks this is the best deal that is available to Northern Ireland. This is something that the government has been working on for a long time. It fixes the problems that we know existed in the protocol and the impact it was having on people's everyday lives. We think this is the right deal, end quote. And I don't think this will fix everything regarding, goods moving from GB to NI. But in a post-Brexit world, you really can't fix everything. Ironically, under the May deal, we could have potentially avoided a lot of this mess, but the DUP were against the May deal. A deal fundamentally that would have been better than what we have now. And for them especially, for their identity crisis. Sinn Féin MLA John O'Dowd said the public needed, quote, stability and the certainty of working institutions. What people want to see is all parties back in the Assembly and the executive working together to fix the problems in our health service and support workers and families struggling with the cost of living crisis. We need stability and the certainty of working institutions to avail of the enormous opportunities presented to us by the agreement between the EU and the British government and by the imminent visit of President Joe Biden. These are huge economic opportunities, can strengthen our economy and create more and better jobs. We need to seize those opportunities, end quote. And, it was Ian Paisley Jr. He was slammed, I think, on a BBC programme over the fact that he's put kind of Northern Ireland's identity issues over the NHS in Northern Ireland. When Sunak keeps talking about the benefits of single market access for Northern Ireland, he's right. Because there are no checks for goods going from Northern Ireland to Great Britain, or checks going on goods from Northern Ireland to the EU. It gives Northern Ireland a big edge for trade and ironically could be used as an argument against Irish unification. But the DUP are too stupid to understand this. Instead, they keep losing it in the British courts they love so much. SDLP leader Colm Eastwood called for political leaders to approach the Windsor Framework, quote, in good faith, deliver the government people voted for last year. The politics of division and deadlock cannot keep holding us back, end quote. And he's right, Northern Ireland won't get anywhere because of the division and the past. Scotland and Wales would be chomping at the bit to have the chance that Northern Ireland has, but the DUP and TUV just don't understand that. And because of this, the setup in Northern Ireland, it's the DUP who will decide when this bout of uncertainty will end. Scotland is desperate for single market access, really. So is Wales, big agricultural exporters, exporting a lot of kind of agri-food based products. They all face, checks, vet checks, and amongst other things, very expensive to export. Northern Ireland doesn't face any of that when they export to the EU. And yet the DUP just don't understand fundamentally what they have. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.